Pocket gun test, 380 ACP versus 32 ACP versus 32 Smith & Wesson long. These are your small calibers with, typically have low recoil and have some Magtech ammunition today. So our 380 ACP is a 95 grain jacketed hollow point. Our 32 ACP is a 71 grain jacketed hollow point, and our 32 Smith & Wesson long is a 98 grain semi-jacketed hollow point. I don't know what the rate of velocities are because I don't see those on the box, but we're going to test our 380 ACP through our Ruger LCP, and we're going to test our 32 Auto through our Kel-Tec P32. Those are very similar guns. And then our 32 Smith & Wesson long, I'm going to use my Ruger LCR and 327 Federal Magnum because that'll fire that just fine. Interesting ammunition overall. So I'm really curious of what we're going to get here. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test. So we're just going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best possible potential of those are. Generally, if I put denim or anything like that in the way, we won't get hollow point expansion with a lot of calibers, but plain clear ballistic shot will give hollow point expansion. I don't know if we'll get hollow point expansion with a clear ballistic shot, but we're going to do that, just a plain shot in the plain clear ballistics. Then after that, we're going to move on to more of our real world simulation with 4 layers of cotton sweatshirt material in this first 3-inch piece that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard to represent hitting ribs or sternum. That'll be more of our real world simulation. So we'll do a plain clear ballistic shot with all these, and then a real world simulation shot. And then I'm going to shoot at the steel target to see what kind of recoil control, accuracy, follow-up shots I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, so before I forget, I did look up the velocity ratings really quick out here to see what the rated velocities are. Our 32 long is 778 feet per second. Our 32 ACP is 905 feet per second. And our 380 ACP is 951 feet per second. So those are obviously through longer barrels than these. But let's see how close we get to those rated velocities anyway. So 951 is our rated for our 380 ACP. Let's see how I get in this little LCP here. See how close we get to 951 feet per second. .836. 832. 800. 863. All right, so I had to aim way over to the left to get those readings because these are shooting really far to the right out of that pistol for some reason. So our 32 ACP, this stuff is rated at 905 feet per second. Let's see how I get in this little Kel-Tec here. See how close I get to 905. 873. 825. 817. 845. 782. 828. So I'm not even sure that first read there was an actual read. I might have just called it from before. But definitely below rated velocity, but not too bad overall. A 32 long, we are rated at 778 feet per second. I think let's do a 4-inch barrel. Let's see what I get here. 732. 695. 698. 689. 756. 709. All right, so not super consistent, but this is definitely the heaviest bullet. So I didn't do the numbers yet, but I'm guessing this is probably, well, maybe not the most powerful, but I think it's more powerful than the 32 ACP. So let's hit our ballistics gel blocks, see how these all compare. All right, our plain clear ballistics test into plain clear ballistics. No denim in the way to clog a hollow point or anything like that. No rib simulation to slow down penetration. So I'm gonna get right up on this block to make these shots, specifically so that I can place accurate shots in that block. Because I'm putting 3 shots in this and then moving on and doing 3 more. So I want to make sure that I get these pretty much where I want them. So our 380 ACP here. All right, 32 ACP. All right, And our 32 Smith & Wesson long. Let's go take a look. All right, interesting performance overall. There's not a whole lot of energy dump going on in this first 3-inch piece here with any of these. 380 in the bottom, a 32 ACP in the middle, a 32 long on top. We see a lot of indication of tumbling with the so-called damage in there, especially with the 32. So our 380 ACP, what we're seeing is a lot of striation marks in there, which would indicate it is just simply moving forward and dumping its energy. And it looks pretty good overall. We're looking at a penetration of 16.25 inches of penetration. Now when we look at our 32 ACP, just absolute indication of tumbling right here. It looks like a ton of damage that's just from tumbling. I mean, that could realistically equate to real damage and a real target, but we got a penetration of about 14.75 inches of penetration, so not bad overall. And our 32 long, we have a penetration of 11.5 inches, so we're a little bit under penetrating there looking at this. So let's put on our sweatshirt material, put in our rib simulation, see how they compare that way. All right, 4 layers of sweatshirt material, 3 inches of clear ballistics, a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard. Let's see how our 380 ACP does. All right, set that with our 32 ACP. And we'll hit that with our 32 Smith & Wesson long. Let's go take a look. All right, not too bad overall. We're gonna pull this MDF out here and take a look at this. Yeah, we are seeing a little bit of indication of tumbling with all of these. 380, 32 ACP, 32 long. Looks like the 32 long probably went in the straightest. And you know, both the 380 and the 32 and the other 32 are all backwards, which would indicate some form of tumbling here. But we definitely have a clear winner based on all of this. Our 380 ACP, we have a penetration of, through our medium density fiberboard and denim, or sweatshirt material, 13.5 inches, so that's acceptable. Now our 32 ACP, we have a penetration of, it's just shy of 10 inches. Parallax will make it look like maybe it's at 10.75 or something. It's more like 9.75 to 10 inches. So that's definitely pretty shallow. That would be enough penetration with the front on shot, but you couldn't count on that to go through a side shot through an arm and have enough penetration the way you could count on that 380. Now our 32 long, we are at 9.5 inches, but I do see some evidence of expansion with that. So very interesting performance here. You know, they were at least very consistent. Like in the plain gel or through our MDF, you know, there wasn't some wild variation of one getting a lot further. They all are in the same order going through our fabric and our MDF of penetration. It looks like the 380 was changed the least. The most change here was the 32. That changed its penetration significantly. The 32 ACP, I should say, and our 32 long, you know, pretty shallow penetration. Now, a lot of people will look at this and be like, well, I'm just going to carry FMJ ammo because, you know, this is what you're going to get. You're not going to get expansion. I would disagree on that, because even if you look at some of the old school stopping power numbers, where, you know, you're looking at real data that's collected, you know, of the instances of one shot being landed, what was the percentage of times that the people stopped doing the action they were doing. If you look at like 380 ACP, FMJ, it's 51% of the time. Even something as low expanding as like the Remington HTP, same energy and all that, you have 56% one-shot stop, and we know that's not going to it's not going to expand at all, but yet there's a 5% increase. Well, why is that? Because there is a little bit more damage going on with that hollow point, just the way it moves in the target. It delivers a little more energy, penetrates a little bit less with a non-expanding hollow point versus just an FMJ. So it's going to do a little bit more damage and be a little bit better than an FMJ. So I honestly think that these are good options for these, even though they don't expand. A lot of people will say, well, the 32 ACP, well, you need an FMJ because that cartridge is just, you know, it's too short when you go to jacketed hollow points. But when you actually look at these jacketed hollow points and 32 ACP, the Magtech, they're almost as long as the FMJs. They're a little bit shorter, but where it matters, it's long enough. So I'll address that in a minute when we shoot at the steel. But let's pull these out of the block. We'll take a close-up look at them, and then I'll shoot our steel, see what kind of practical shootability I can get with these. All right, so here's a close-up look at these bullets all going through our plain gel here. So here is our 380 ACP, here is our 32 ACP, and here is our 32 Smith & Wesson long. No change to our 380 ACP. Really no change to our 32 ACP. A 32 Smith & Wesson long, it looks like the nose kind of started to flare out a little bit, but definitely not really what I would call expansion. Now this is interesting. When we go through our medium density fiberboard, everything changes up quite a bit. Well, with some of these. Our 380 ACP did not change at all. Looks identical to the bullet going through plain gel. Our 32 ACP started to want to expand a little bit. And then our 32 Smith & Wesson long here got full expansion. And that's really what caused it to underpenetrate quite a bit. So really no change to our 380 through the MDF and fabric. A little bit of change to our 32 ACP. And a lot of change to our 32 Smith & Wesson long. So in terms of thermal ballistics, this did look the best, but this kind of looks better in a sense of, you know, doing what it's supposed to do in a way. But, you know, under penetration is not a good thing. But if you were to make a right shot with that, I think that would do pretty well. And our 32 is just, you know, it's mediocre, but it's not bad. It's a little, looks better than the 380 in terms of what the bullets look like, but just not when we look at our gel test. Our 380 did a little bit better here. So interesting. That's a close-up look at those bullets. All right, 12 yards from the target, I'm just going to do some practical shootability, get my sights lined up, land these on target as fast as I think I can hit the target. So here's our 380 ACP. Let's see what this does for me. All right. Kind of a handful to control, to be honest. Now with our 32 ACP, what I was going to say is I was going to address this. A lot of people are worried about rim lock. These are actually really, really long for what they are. And if we actually look at, it's hard to explain this. They do pretty much go to the front of the magazine. They're not quite as long as full metal jackets, but where it matters, there's curves on the magazine on both sides here. And those curves come down just a little bit there. And they come down right here to the top of that jacketed hollow point front right there. So that's going to hit that. And just the fact that there's not more roundedness on the front of that like a FMJ to touch the front of the magazine, it's still touching the front of the magazine on these curves. So for all intents and purposes, this is pretty much exactly the same overall length as an FMJ. So let's see how I can do with that 32 ACP. All right, got a little overconfident there, pulled one over the target. Our 32 long, this is not really fair because this is a lot heavier gun, but let's see how I can do with this. I'd probably pick this out of all those, but you know, there's a lot more gun there to carry around. So let me back up just a little bit, see how these continue to shoot for me. All right, 40 yards from the target, our Dick and Drill distance here. I'm just kind of curious how these things will shoot for me. So jacketed hollow point bullets are typically a little more accurate than full metal jacket because that weight's in the rear of that bullet a little more. But let's just see what I can do here with the 380 ACP. All right, and they are shifting just a little bit to the right like we had when I was chronographing those rounds. So 32 ACP, let's see what this thing does. All right, those things are pretty accurate for me too. 32 Smith & Wesson long. Let's see what these things will do. All right, I missed one, but those did appear to hit the steel just a little bit harder than these other two. A little bit heavier bullet than that 380, even though it's a 32 here. So looking at this test, very interesting overall here. So first thing I want to talk about is FMJ versus jacketed hollow point. I do think it is a better option to carry jacketed hollow points in cartridges, even if you know that that bullet's not going to expand, because all the data points to the fact that they're going to work a little bit better in full metal jacket. And even in my testing, I'm seeing a little bit more damage in my medium there than what I would see with full metal jacket. So I think just based on that alone, it's actually a little bit better to carry a jacketed hollow point if they're long enough, at least for that 32 ACP, if they're long enough. And also you could get into some of the talk about like law enforcement loads, like Federal Hydroshock 32s and 380s. Those have sealants around the primers and around the bullets, so that can make them last longer. So that would definitely be better than an FMJ, which never features those things. But we'll keep that out of the conversation because we're talking Magtech, and these are one of the longer jacketed hollow points that would work in a 32 ACP pistol and not cause rim lock. So I won't get too much into that, but just alone jacketed hollow points here, I think that you know, they're better to use than FMJs. Now we look at this test here, comparing all three of these. Our obvious winner was our 380 ACP. That being said, I would say it takes roughly double the amount of skill to use it effectively versus these 32s. There's a lot more felt recoil, and there's a lot more that I was doing that you guys were not actually seeing. There's just a lot of little weird things inside your hand muscles and different parts of your hand that I'm doing a little bit different with that 380 ACP, as where with the 32s, I'm doing pretty much nothing. So if you put these guns all in the hands of somebody that's never shot before, there's a good chance they're going to struggle with that 380 because it's so light, as where with the 32s, those shot really, really well for me. So terminal ballistics wise, our 380 ACP won this one. If you can handle that, yeah, that's a better option here. But let's be honest, we're here to talk about the 32 ACP. That's why we're all here. And when we look at that, you know, that actually performed okay. We had a little bit under penetration going through our rib simulation, but I think it's enough penetration that I think it would work most of the time. Now with our 32 long, you know, for what the power level was and all that, we're really lacking on what we got. We did get some expansion with the hollow point, the semi-jacketed hollow point. Well, that's good, but we underpenetrated quite a bit. So I would say our best performances are 380, our worst performances are 32 long in this type of testing. But our most balanced load overall with shootability and what it did in the target, I would say, is the 32 ACP. I say that's the most balanced cartridge here out of all three of these. Yes, our 380 did better terminal ballistics wise, but I would say our 32 ACP, you know, it just underpenetrated was its main thing. But we had so little recoil that shot placement would be a lot better with the 32 ACP. So I'm not going to draw a conclusion and tell each person what's best for them, but that's just some of my thoughts on all of these. So that's what you get today with our 32 versus 380 ACP test. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.